If you're into micro brands, it's not going to take you too long to hear the name Zelos or Zelos. I'm not entirely sure the correct pronunciation of the brand's name, so I may be using that interchangeably. However, they have created a great reputation for themselves within the enthusiast space, and that's for good reason. They excel very well in using different materials within their watches. They have great design language within the spread of each collection, and they decided that it was time to do a new version 3 of the Mako diver. And I reached out to Zelos to see if they would be interested in me doing a review video. The watch was sent to me, it's not getting sent back, but all my words are my own and there's no other compensation in making this review. Now, if you're interested to know more about Zelos in the history and or if you like unboxings, I actually did a live stream on this channel where I did that dedicated for that kind of information. But I'd rather stick to just a watch review for this video, so let's take a look at it and see what we come up with. So there are a few subtle changes to this range of Makos. First change with the use of sapphire bezels with a new click system, much like the last batch of the Swordfish divers. It's a much smoother feel and sharper click compared to the older styles. Another update is the female end links, which has been a popular request over the years. Now this requires a 1mm increase in the lug to lug over previous Makos from 46 to 47mm, but it will hug smaller wrists better. And there's also a new logo for the dial that we may just see being used moving forward for all collections. The timepiece measures in at 40mm diameter, 47mm lug to lug. It has a thickness of 14.8mm, a strap-friendly 20mm lug width. The crown is 6.4mm. It has a water resistance of 300 meters, and it's fully linked at a weight of 183 grams. Powering this timepiece, we have a mechanical automatic movement, the Miyota 9015 with 42 hours of power reserve, an accuracy of -10 to +30 seconds a day. It hacks, hand winds, and it's known for its robustness and a shuffling rotor. Included with the purchase and strapping the timepiece to your wrist, we get a 3-link old-style bracelet screwed into one another for the links, primarily brushed with polishing on its edges. It does feature quick release at the lug attachment, solid female end links that has a straight but flush attachment to the case. 20mm down to an 18mm, reaching up to the clasp, which picks back up at 20.3mm width by 36.4mm in length. We get a milled scissored bridge connecting the push deployment clasp. The clasp is brushed on its face with an embossed logo sporting a bead blasted background. On the fly adjustment that uses a spring loaded pressure. Honestly, the overall quality of the bracelet is amazing. The tolerances in the screws are almost perfect when sizing the bracelet. I only received very slight misthreading when screwing back in the pins. That said, subjectively, some will feel that the clasp is a little bulky, but for my 4¼ inch wrist, I rather enjoy the size, and I feel that it balances out the watch head dimensionally. All of the corners to the links in the clasp have a smooth feel to it. I do like the shape and design of the clasp itself. The bracelet is heavy, smooth, and is a 10 out of 10 for specification requirements in my book, and I overall truly feel that the bracelet gives a luxurious feel. Taking a look now at the case back, it's primarily bead blasted with a circular brushed Mako shark embossed in its center. This Mako shark is riddled with details of the ocean apex predator, and there's only small specification text above and below it, including the watch's numbered release, and in this case limited to 200 pieces. Casebacks are usually notorious from taking a thrashing from its neighboring metal clasp, so it's nice to see that it's absent of any polishing, to be honest. For keyless work function, we get a screwed down crown with coin edge knurling to match the finishing to the sides of the bezel identically. It's easy to grip. It's engraved with a logo filled with C3 lume. It has a nice popping ejection from the case when fully unscrewed, and when securing the crown, screwing it in and out of the case, it has a buttery smooth feel to it, and there's no grittiness from metal to metal. From this angle, running along the side of the case into the crown is a one-sided slip guard, giving it a slight recessed appearance on the right side of the crown. As for both sides of the case, we have horizontal satin-like finish brushing with a downturned mirror polishing accents, with equal quality brushing vertically on the top of the lugs. In between the lug space to the case is a straighter configuration, which I love as a design because it allows straps to be more flush fit at that lug attachment when you're swapping it out for a strap. For the bezel, we get 120 click unidirectional ceramic with a brushed finish insert, bluish gray tone with a light blue loomed markers. It has a coined edged with a brushed finish, a fantastic resistance for the bezel turn, a very sturdy turn at that, improved audible click from the past release for the Mako, There's a tiny bit settlement with no backplay after the fact. It lines up perfectly to the chapter ring and the indexes below it. On the other models, they have a sapphire bezel insert, which is a new feature to the core collection. Sitting just above that bezel, we get a double domed sapphire crystal with inner AR coating. I think I catch a subtle hint of blue reflecting, so I believe there's a blue AR coating within it. Now, it does a decent job of combating reflections, but in direct sunlight, because of the degree of curvature in the double dome, in high lit scenarios, it can gain some glare inevitably. Otherwise, it's a pretty clear crystal. Sitting just below that crystal, we get polished sword-shaped hands for the hour and minute hand. It also has a polished second hand in the shape of a pill that is colored at the point of the tip, reaching out to the end of the dial, all of which has been filled with a blue BGW9. The hands are manufactured to a high degree of finish, and I definitely agree with the proportions of size. For interior design, the dial starts off with a chapter ring that is shorter than I normally see, and I also enjoy this design because the second and minute hand only overlap at its very end, making legibility extremely accurate when reading the time. On the chapter ring, we get painted white double-digit markers for every 5-minute value. Even the 0 and 5 marker has been complemented with an additional 0 power before it, so it's balanced and equal throughout. Moving inward, we receive relatively large applied lume plot indexes filled with light blue lume, outlined in a polished stainless steel trim. They are triangular shaped at the 12, 3, and 9 with a partial index for continuity of lume at the 6 o'clock position. At the centered most 12 o'clock position, we could find that new Zelos applied logo. It's sandblasted, legible, and proportionate. At the centered 6 o'clock position, we have blue painted text, 300 meters or 1,000 feet of water resistance, and an automatic painted in white just below it. Date wheel aperture replaces the 6th index almost entirely, aside from that partially lumed index, all of which rest directly on or hovering over a meteorite dial. This type of material is made from a slice of space rock that fell to the earth. The meteorite's unique crystalline pattern and texture makes each dial one of a kind in this pattern, and is created by the slow cooling of iron and nickel over millions of years, giving off both a silver shine, white streaks, combined with a flat gray tone. As for a nocturnal setting for the lume, the BGW9 is on the hands, indexes, and the chapter ring with that C3 on the crown. Now, when I first received the watch, I was a little nervous about having that colored type of lume. In the past, I've had some issues with it being effective, but I've had no issues with this lume on this watch whatsoever. Through lack of my own experience, I can't proclaim this to be the best lume on the market, but I can say it is highly effective and lasts throughout the entire night. There are 6 models to choose from, including this meteorite dial. I would act quickly if you are thinking of purchasing it. Zelos likes to make small, limited batches for their runs, but if you do happen to miss this run, Zelos continuously and consistently puts out new runs for their core collection. And I'll leave a link in the description that takes you directly to the Zelos website for you to view their Mako collection. One of the most common questions that enthusiasts have for Zelos is why the limited batches? Why not take pre-orders? This way, everybody who's interested in the design language that's being released has a chance to get one of those watches. And I was curious enough to send Elson Tang an email to answer this question, and here's what he had to say. And I quote, "I get this way too often, but it's always impossible to predict demand, and I don't want to end up sitting on unsold stock. Pre-orders are extremely difficult to manage and only serve to anger impatient customers. Here's the deal. As I get into contact with more brand owners and seeing how the sausage is made, the less I personally feel compelled to stress my opinion about how the brand should run their business. Of course, our feedback is important for new releases, just like this Mako release has those improvements, because even after 11 years, Zelos is interested in our opinions to make improvements to their watches while still having them at an affordable rate relative to the value that's out there. And I gotta be honest, when I first received this watch, I wasn't sure. I knew that I wanted the meteorite dial, but I wasn't sure if those blue indices and blue hands were gonna match the rest of the watch aesthetically. But it's clear to me now that Mr. Tang knows exactly what he's doing, and I'm not sure if it's the bezel insert being that bluish gray tone that's pulling everything together, but the watch is significantly more impressive in person. I had high hopes hearing good things about Zelos, and overall, I really feel that this watch is an affordable luxury type of feel to the watch altogether, and I'm a big fan now of Zelos moving forward. But let me know what you guys think of this Zelo release for the Mako line. Let me know what you think of Zelos as as a brand in general. I'm curious to hear from you guys, and I appreciate you guys for spending your most valuable asset, which is time, and I hopefully will see you in the next one. Now, one of the most common questions that enthusiasts have for Zelos is why the... Yeah. Now, one of the most... Now, one of the most common questions that enthusiasts have for Zelos is why the limited... Now, one of the most... Gather yourself. It's been a rough day recording. I have put my phone on photo mode. I have taken portrait pictures instead of recording. I've not connected my mic. This is like my 10th take. All right, action. One of the most common questions... One of the most common questions... Oh, snap. All right, get it together here. And action. One of the most common questions that enthusiasts have for Zelos is why the limited... One of the most common questions that enthusiasts have for Zelos is why the limited runs. One of the most common questions that enthusiasts have for Zelos is why the limited runs when it... One of the most common questions that enthusiasts have for Zelos is why the limited batches.